If you've been thinking about moving to Cochrane, Alberta, this video is going to save you a ton of time. I'm going to dive into Google Maps, give you a full tour of the town, show you where every community is, where all the amenities are, where the schools are located, show you some great pathways, some really cool parks nearby, and show you how everything connects to the bigger city of Calgary, Alberta. That way, by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how Cochrane's laid out before you even step foot in the town. That'll make your home search, especially if you're relocating from another province, so much easier. Let's jump into it. All right, here we go. I've just popped up into Google Maps now, and everyone is more familiar with where Calgary is located. And if you're moving in from another province, this is where you're going to fly into. So right here, we got Calgary International Airport. You're going to fly into here. Get your rental car. You're going to need one. And the access into Cochrane is just up Highway 2 or Deerfoot Trail and over on Stony Trail and out Highway 1A. Moving just slightly northwest, here is where the town of Cochrane is situated. It's about 15 to 20 minutes just northwest of Calgary there, and it's again about 15 minutes further west to Ghost Lake, which is a super cool recreation site that I'll show you a little bit later in the video, so stick around, you'll want to check that one out. First off, Cochrane obviously is a town of about 40,000 people, not super big, but it's been growing rapidly over the last 5 years. There's some pretty big communities, there's a lot of new communities, and we're going to show you some of the really cool older mature communities as we dive further into this video. Most of the residents in Cochrane are going to have to commute for work. Cochrane, being only a 40,000 person town, doesn't have as many jobs as you would find in a larger city. And so some of the big things you're going to want to pay attention to here is Highway 1A that runs through Cochrane and into Calgary, and then Highway 22 that runs south out of Cochrane to Highway 1, which will run east back into Calgary, giving you a couple different access points depending on where in the city you may work. So those are two really important roads. Now, as we're moving here, Cochrane is really well laid out in that all of the surrounding communities are kind of all around in here, and the downtown area where you're going to find all of your shopping is right here. The center of Cochrane is where all of your businesses are and the majority of your grocery stores. Now, the other really big and cool thing about Cochrane, Alberta is that the Bow River flows right through town. And one thing that Cochrane has done a really good job of doing is actually having a paved pathway system that runs all the way along the river here past a couple of older communities, and it extends the length of the town. So if you're into running, biking, or walking, this is a great thing that we have here in town. If you link up from the start of that pathway system about here and go all the way to the end here and back, it's about 14 to 15 kilometers worth of a paved trail. And they do a really good job of clearing that even in the snowy months. Now, as we jump in here, we're going to start moving into the communities. And first community that we're going to talk about here is Glen Eagles. Now, Glen Eagles is the first community that you're going to come to when you leave Calgary heading west on Highway 1A. Glen Eagles is a really neat community. It was built in the late 90s, early 2000s. So the homes here are established. But what makes Glen Eagles a little bit different is that 3 of the communities, so here, here, and here, are actually Bearland condominiums. So you will buy a traditional looking house, but you're part of a Bearland condo. So all of the road maintenance and garbage collection and landscape maintenance is all covered by that condominium. And so there is monthly condo fees associated with these 3 neighborhoods. With those neighborhoods, there's also some guidelines in terms of the fencing that is allowed in those areas. In Glen Eagles, it's green chain link to keep everything looking wide and open. And then also there is some restrictions on the type of shingles you can use on your home, with most of these communities here actually requiring you to have wood shingles. Now, the other 2 communities here that you see that make up Glen Eagles are not part of that Bearland condominium, and so those ones are just standard freehold like you'd expect. One of the really cool things about Glen Eagles is that they have great pathway systems along the edges of the homes here. A lot of the homes have some fantastic views of the Rocky Mountains because it is elevated. It's hard to tell here on the map, but this is one of the higher communities here in Cochrane, and so looking west, you're going to have great views of the Rocky Mountains. With that, Glen Eagles also is home to Glen Eagles Golf Course. So if you're looking for that home that backs onto the golf course, or you're a big golfer, this might be a really cool community for you because of the access that you have there. On top of that, this pathway that runs out of the bottom side of Glen Eagles here connects to a provincial park that I'll touch on a little bit later because it's one of the really cool features that's surrounding Cochrane. As we move down into Cochrane, down Highway 1A, we get to this small little community here. This is East End. So East End doesn't have as many pathways as a lot of the other communities in Cochrane. It is an older community, but the town has done a really good job. So they've gone through, and about 7 to 8 years ago, they went through and actually redid all the streets here in the East End. And so they dug up the sidewalks and redid all those, repaved it, and redid the deep services. So while you're buying into an older neighborhood, the major services have been refreshed here. It is also one of the only communities that I would consider walkable here in Cochrane, because you are just right off First Street here, and there's good restaurants, and then you move into the downtown area here with a great coffee shop here. Coffee Traders just walking distance away. McKay's Ice Cream, big popular spot for people to go visit, especially in the summertime, so that's located right there. So East End does give you a little bit more of a walking type feel if that's something you're into. As we move south here, this is the newest community in Cochrane right here, which is Greystone. So Greystone was a former gravel yard, and so they've reconditioned it here. We've got homes being built. This is going to be a commercial area here. There's a new veterinary office that my friend actually works at. Really cool little spot. It's where we take our dog. And then one of the neat little things that they've done here in Greystone is added 2 new ballparks, a nice park. There's washroom facilities for in the summertime, and then a whole bunch of pickleball courts here that are open in the summertime as well. There's a future hotel site, so that'll add another hotel to Cochrane, which is really cool. And then it is walking distance to the SLS Center, which is Cochrane's major recreation complex. There's 3 indoor arenas, there's indoor turf fields, there's a track, there's a gym, pool, physiotherapy center. It's got everything you're looking for there, as well as a splash park for the kids outside here for the summertime months. On top of that, Greystone's walking distance to the off-leash dog park that runs along that Bow River pathway system, which is the Jim Alflemand off-leash dog park. So that's a super cool feature that Greystone has as well. Continuing south, this portion here is all considered River Song, River Crest, a couple different communities that are all broken into. So the first one I'm going to touch on is Riviera, which is down closest to the river here. Good amount of trail systems throughout it. These are larger homes, but Riviera does have a couple cool little sections right here, and then at the end right here, which are actually condominiumed duplexes. So if you're looking for that retirement style where you have a smaller house, more of a walkout bungalow style, and you don't have to worry about any of the maintenance, these 2 little areas here on the map are going to be great for you to look at. And on top of that, there's a paved pathway that runs the length of the river this way, and you can actually cross the bridge here, which is a wooden footbridge, and connect to the rest of the Bow River pathway system. So that is Riviera. As we come up the hill here, this is Precedence. Precedence has a lot of really cool homes along this ridge here that again look west out over the Bow River Valley, and it shows great views of the Rocky Mountains, which is super awesome as well. The homes here on the east will look again east, heading back towards Calgary, but you're actually looking at the Glenbow Ranch Provincial Park, which I'll touch on later. There is a future development coming in here, which is currently a aggregate pit or a soil and gravel pit. The future development here will remediate that over the next few years. Moving up the hill, we have River Song, and so this whole area here is considered River Song. And inside of River Song is the Bow Valley High School, which is one of 3 of Cochrane's high schools. River Song has a nice mix of townhouses, and then a lot of these homes here that are actually along the ridge are actually duplexes, which is really cool that this community has that. If you're looking for that duplex style home, you can actually get a duplex with a better view because you're on the ridge looking again east towards this provincial park. So there's a lot of green space in your view here that you wouldn't have with some other traditional duplex areas. Just on the other side of Bow Valley High School is the Willows. The Willows is a nice small community, little playground. It's not super big. It will be backing onto, or is backing onto, the new community of South Bow Landing, which I'll touch on in a second here. But again, the Willows also has a good mixture of townhomes and duplexes, as well as some single family detached homes as you move on to the backside. Moving across River Heights Drive, this is Rivercrest. Rivercrest is this area here. It backs onto this 130-acre environmental reserve with pathways along the backside, and then you do have to kind of come out and around these 2 other acreages to connect back into the pathway system. But that is where Rivercrest is. The cool thing about Rivercrest is there is a small amount of townhouses development right here, but the rest of the properties here in Rivercrest are all single detached homes with some really cool ravine lots here with really nice views of some nature right behind you, so you don't have that same amount of clutter. Being that Rivercrest is so small, you don't get a lot of traffic down into this community, so it can tend to be pretty quiet because the only reason to come into Rivercrest for the time being, is if you live here. So while you still have a little bit of construction traffic, as it's not fully built out, it is nearing the end of completion. One really big thing to note about Rivercrest is actually the home to the new K-8 school that was announced last year. So it has full provincial construction and design funding. And so they will be adding a K-8 school here, which will take a lot of pressure off the school here in Fireside. Now, as you leave River Heights, you will end up coming through here, and this is where the car dealerships are. So there is a handful of car dealerships in Cochrane, Nissan, Ford, and the Dodge dealership is here. The GM one is further in the downtown. And then right here in this open area here is a future grocery store. As of right now, it's penciled in to be a Sobeys, and that is the start of the commercial area for what is now South Bow Landing. South Bow Landing is one of the newest communities here in Cochrane, and it's going to expand, and it's going to go all the way over to about here. And there's going to be some really nice estate homes, and we're talking 4 or 5 years down the road when they get to this point where they're going to open up to some wider lots, some really nice green spaces around the river area, but again, some larger, wider, bigger estate lots, which is really nice to see coming to Cochrane. Right now, they're just building in phase 1, and the aerial is a little bit behind. I'll show you some overhead footage coming up here. There is some more higher density living coming for South Bow Landing, and that'll be in phase 2, which is in this area here, which is going to have some medium and multifamily density style homes, so townhouses and larger condo complexes in this area here. Now, backing up here just to relocate where we are, we're still on the south side of Cochrane here, south of that Bow River, but now we're going to jump across Highway 22, and this is Fireside. Fireside's a really great community for those young families because there is 2 K-8 schools right in the community. So you have Fireside K-8, which is the public school board, and then you have the Holy Spirit Catholic School, which is the Calgary Catholic School Board. So 2 different ones there. The great thing about this community is that the pathway kind of runs all the way through the community with some really cool features that I'll show you in a second. One is a outdoor rink, ball diamond, a bunch of green space, and then if we scroll down here, there's actually a playground, a little pump track for those kids that like BMX and biking, and then on the back side of this is actually a tobogganing hill. So you kind of got a lot of amenities and fun things for the kids to do right inside of the community, and all the pathways kind of join it. So that's super nice. The other really cool thing I like about Fireside is that this parcel of land just to the south of it here has no immediate plans of being developed, as the ranchers that own this area are pretty anti-development, and so there's no plans for them to sell to a developer anytime soon. Any of these homes that line this backside here, you're gonna have a great view of just some grazing areas with some cattle and nothing blocking your view. At the entry to Fireside, you do have a little bit more amenities than some of the other communities here in Cochrane. You have a Shell gas station here, and then you have a Tim Hortons, a McDonald's, there's an Italian restaurant, there is veterinary clinic, there's a pharmacy, and just some other cool little amenities here right at the entrance of the community, so you don't actually have to leave your community, which is just a really great feature for those young families that just want to fill up the car, grab a quick bite to eat, and then head off to the mountains. One really cool thing to think about with these communities that are on the south side of Cochrane here, south of the Bow River, is that the access to Highway 22 is so easy. Highway 22 is going to be a very important road for you if you move to Cochrane, because heading south on Highway 22 and connecting onto Highway 1 and heading west is what is actually going to get you further down and into the mountains. So whether you're accessing Canmore for a day trip, heading skiing at Sunshine, Lake Louise, Nakiska, or just driving out to Banff, this is your access point to the Rocky Mountains right through the south side of Cochrane. So for families that are big into the winter sports and skiing and love to spend time in the mountains, these communities here on the south side are a really good fit. Moving and staying in context with what's on the south side here, if you head south on Highway 22 for about half an hour, you'll get into Bragg Creek. Bragg Creek's a little small town just south of Cochrane. I won't dive too much into it here, but if you go through Bragg Creek, you can actually get to the West Bragg Creek Provincial Recreation Area, which is a fantastic area with lots of parking, washrooms, and everything like that, and then kilometers and kilometers of a trail network that is great for hiking, biking, trail running, cross-country skiing in the winter, snowshoeing in the winter. This is a huge hub for recreation, so that's an awesome little feature to know about just south of town, especially if you're coming out looking for properties and you're looking for something to kill an afternoon and go see some nature while you're out here. That's a nice quick one to jump out and go see. Coming back down into town now, we come back down Highway 22 towards the river, and now we're going to jump out here left on George Fox Trail and talk about a few communities down here. First community I'm talking about is Jumping Pound Ridge. Jumping Pound Ridge is a really small community tucked away. The map doesn't really do it justice, but all of Jumping Pound Ridge is, as the name implies, quite elevated from Jumping Pound Creek. And this area in here is actually a nature conservancy site, so nothing's gonna be developed here. And then again, the landowner that owns in here has no interest of developing anytime soon. So these views from this pathway along the ridge are gonna remain, which is super awesome. Jumping Pound Ridge is really mainly made up of single-family detached homes. You're not going to find any duplexes here in Jumping Pound Ridge. The only thing you will find is this area here, which is a townhouse complex. But again, you're getting some townhouses with some phenomenal views of nature, which is very rare that they use that type of a view for a multi-density home. So that's a really cool area to look at too if you're interested in townhouses. Jumping across George Fox Trail, we move into Bow Ridge. Bow Ridge is one of the older communities, more mature communities here in Cochrane. These homes were built in the mid-90s. You're gonna see a varying level of updating done in these homes. You're gonna find some true original homes that, yeah, could use a facelift, but you can get a little bit of a nicer, bigger yard and then put some equity into it and do that updating yourself. Or you can find the homes that have already been updated. Bow Ridge has a nice pathway system here, and you can actually jump down through the trees in here and connect down to this pathway up below Crawford Ranch. And that gets you right along the Bow River. And then if you're big into fishing, Jumping Pound Creek actually has some really good fly fishing. And because of our river access rules in Alberta, once you're within the high water line, you can just walk up this river and fish, which is super cool. So I wouldn't access the creek coming down here. This landowner does have signs up that he does not like people crossing the property, but you can access Jumping Pound Creek right here, right out of Bow Meadows, and come at it this way. So just keep that in mind that for access, you're going to want to make use of this parking lot here by the soccer fields, or make use of some parking down further here and access it this way. Because again, like I said, you can't access through this nature conservancy site and you can't access through this landowner, but once you're within the high water line, you're free and clear. There is a small area here in Bow Ridge that does have a retaining wall issue. And so if you have questions about that and you're looking at homes in Bow Ridge, get a hold of me and we can go through that so that you're prepared for that. I'm not going to dive into it too much in this video, otherwise you'll be here far too long. Just to the right of that is Bow Meadows. Again, another older, more mature community. Pathways along the Bow River, and it backs onto the soccer field area here. Bow Meadows has the same sort of idea where you're going to find some older homes that still have wooden shingles, but they can be updated to asphalt shingles. There's no condominium or restrictive covenants preventing that. Bow Meadows does also have a little bit of a wider lot, or some of these lots are a little bit wider. So you'll see some bigger homes down in Bow Meadows than you will in Bow Ridge, with just, again, more mature landscaping, wider streets than the newer communities, more street parking, and just a little bit more privacy due to that more mature landscaping that you're seeing here in the video, which I think is nice. It may just come with the need to update the home a little bit more than in the newer communities. So that concludes all of the communities south of the Bow River. And one thing that is super nice about Cochrane being so small and having two major feeder roads through it is that nothing is really too far away. And so to get into downtown to do any of your grocery shopping or visit any of the major amenities, even these communities on the south side of the Bow River, it really only takes 10 to 12 minutes, depending on which lights you hit, to get into downtown. So it's super close. But before we jump back across the river here on Highway 22, I'm going to take a chance to talk about Provincial Park that's super close to Glen Eagles before we dive into the rest of Cochrane. So if you leave Cochrane and come up Highway 1A and then come down this access road here, it brings you into Glenbow Provincial Park. Now, Glenbow Provincial Park, as you can see here, has an extensive trail network, which connects right up into Glen Eagles, and it connects all the way down here, and you can get all the way down to Bears Paw Reservoir, which is crazy, and it's just got a ton of pathways. And again, for most people in Cochrane, getting to this access and getting to this parking area is only going to take you 10 or 15 minutes. And for those residents that live in Glen Eagles, just ride your bike or walk or run right out of your community, and you're into this trail system. So paved pathways that run all the way along. You got the river valley out here. Looking back, you can see the foothills. It's such a cool area, and having a provincial park like this so close to Cochrane is a huge, huge asset. Let's jump back into it. So coming back across Highway 22, the first community that we're going to find is Glenbow. So Glenbow is, again, one of the last few communities that I'm going to consider as being walkable here in Cochrane, because these homes, again, as you can see, have a really tight proximity to all the shopping and the downtown areas that Cochrane has. Glenbow also has some really good pathways that run through it. Tennis courts, baseball diamonds, the rodeo grounds are right in here. And then it also has the Glenbow Elementary School inside the community. So for those families that are looking for a community with a school inside of it, this is a great option. These homes are older, but just like East End, Cochrane just went through this last year and updated all the streets and sidewalks and underground services in this community. So while you're buying into an older community, the actual infrastructure that's supporting that community is not that old. Now, Glenbow was finished before the 1980s. So in Glenbow, there are very few homes that you have to worry about Poly B plumbing, but we'll talk about Poly B a little bit more as we dive into the next couple of mature neighborhoods, and one that you're definitely really going to want to see, because again, it's not a very well-known community, and when homes pop up there, they go very fast, so stick around for that. Glenbow also has an easy access with this pathway crossing that crosses underneath Griffin Road. So there's a tunnel right here that you can cross and access into the trails here, which connects you to the Riverfront Park. It also has access to the disc golf course. So if you're big into disc golf, there's a pretty cool course right here. And then again, you have some off-leash dog park areas here that are fenced in. And then right here is another fenced-in dog park for Cochrane. Continuing on, getting the last walkable community out of the way, this is Riverview. Now, Riverview is a community that is really cool because all of the homes either back onto green space and pathways or onto Riverview Greens, which is Cochrane Golf Club. You've got a lot of homes that back onto more natural settings, which is really cool. The homes here do go very fast because they're very sought after, obviously because of its location to downtown and the location being along the river. A lot of these homes that are on the river are walkouts and you just get phenomenal views, but they're set back so far off the river that even during Calgary's big catastrophic floods in 2013, these homes were untouched because the river just didn't rise enough and travel far enough to get into these lots. So that's a really good thing, that if you're worried about living this close to a river, the offset that these homes have has done a really good job of protecting them in the past from big flooding events. Now, Riverview is one of the communities that you do have to pay attention to whether or not the home has Poly B. Poly B is just a type of plumbing that was installed in the mid 80s to early 90s, and it's a big pain. Insurance companies don't like it and lenders don't like it. So if a home has Poly B, either expect the seller to have already replaced it. That's the hope. If the home has Poly B and they haven't, they do have to disclose that here in the province of Alberta. So we will know looking at that home whether it has it. But that is a big thing to pay attention to because it will be something that you're going to want to remediate. It is pretty invasive. So finding these homes that are a little bit older and need updating anyway, this is your perfect opportunity to jump in, rip out that plumbing, redo it the same time as you're doing the rest of the renovations to bring that home up to current modern standards. Riverview also has access to Mackerel Park with some ball diamonds, a playground, and then it is also really close to Greystone and the off-leash dog park here, and obviously the pathway system that runs along the Bow River. The next three communities are all kind of linked together here, and so they are on the west side of Highway 22, again north of the Bow River, and we just talked about the off-leash dog parks that exist, and they are West Valley, West Terrace, and the little-known West Point. And this is that cool one because, again, it's not really well known and it's not very big either. One of the biggest, coolest things about this community is that while, yes, it connects through and has the pathway along the Bow River, it has Mitford Ponds. So right here at the south end are two ponds called Mitford Ponds. In the winter, they freeze over. You can skate on them. And they do a curling event every year, which is really cool. But in the summer, this pond is stocked. So for young kids that want to just go and do some fishing after school and just want to walk from their house, West Valley is a great little spot for that. They're smaller homes, they're older homes, so generally pricing is a little bit less for these homes, but it's got a really good amenity rich area that you can come and, fish with your kids in an evening, which is really cool and not something that you see very often at all. So West Valley is here. There's a mixture of duplexes, you'll find some older bungalows, but again, a good network of trails and pathways and parks all throughout this area. West Terrace is slightly newer. Obviously, they did West Valley first and then moved into West Terrace. Same amount of pathways here in West Terrace. And then at the end here is West Point, which is that little well-known community that I was talking about. It is made up mostly of more estate-style homes, especially down by the river here. There is some bungalows with walkouts to the river as well. This was the latest part of the West Valley, West Terrace build, so there's less homes in here that are affected by that Poly B. The bulk of them are in West Valley and West Terrace. Right inside of these communities are the Mitford School, which is a 5 to 8 school, and then the École Notre Dame de Vallée, which is a French immersion school. So if you're wanting to do French and French immersion, this is one of the schools here. It's got pretty easy access from community above it here, Heartland, through this pathway system, which we'll talk about. And then obviously the 3 communities of West Valley, West Terrace, and West Point, really easy access here. While we come out here, you can access downtown coming along Quigley Drive, which is really easy, or you can come up and go through Highway 1A or down and come along Griffin. So you've got a few different options coming out of these communities to get into downtown. Before we continue north and move up into the last 4 communities of Cochrane, and we're going to finish on the largest of the communities, the biggest community here in Cochrane, so stick around for that one. This is where the GM dealership is, and then this is also where you're going to find the current hotels here in Cochrane. So if you're coming from other provinces and you're looking for a place to stay, this is where you're going to be looking. You've got the Bow River Inn, Days Inn and Suites, Canelta Cochrane, and a Super 8. So there's a few different hotels here in this area. Canelta Hotel here actually had a little bit of a fire a few years ago, so these rooms have been mostly redone. So if you're looking for something that's been updated a little bit more, this would be the one to pick here. Okay, and as you see by the map, we're going to touch on here, as we move in these next communities, all of these next communities are going to be affected by the Highway 1A and Highway 22 interchange. Now, this structure looks far different, and I'll throw up a video clip here of what it used to be, which was a just straight set of lights intersection. It was terrible. The traffic backed up on weekends unbelievably, and so the province over the past 3 years has been working to complete this construction, and we are nearing completion now. So now we have traffic circles that free flow from Heritage Hills, Heartland area into Cochrane, and then the overpass that takes you up north into Sunset Ridge, which we'll touch on at the end. But just know that this construction still is ongoing this year, which is 2026, but it is almost completed. So that is an exciting thing for the residents here in Cochrane. One other really cool feature about Cochrane is this area right here, which is the ranch house area, and there's a whole network of trails that you can then follow the old ranch road all the way up this ravine into here. And then if you tie into some pathways here, you'll see the Mount St. Francis retreat area. So this is owned by the Mount St. Francis Church Group, but what they've done is they've allowed Cochrane residents to build trails through Bike Cochrane along this hillside here, and then they've got a trail network along in here as well that they allow the town residents to use for no charge, which is awesome. So if you're big into biking and trail running, there is a lot of areas here in Cochrane that you can access and do some really cool hill repeats, because obviously, as you'll see by the street view here, you're gonna put on some pretty serious vert trying to run up and down these hills, which is a really cool feature. And then in the summertime, you'll actually get to see some people paragliding off these hills as you're driving up and down Highway 1. Just to give you an idea where we are right now, this is Cochrane downtown area, looking west towards the mountains. And if you continue up here, Glen Eagles will be on your right. So yeah, the ranch house pathway system, super cool. Definitely make use of that when you move into town. The last few grouped of communities here we're going to talk about is Heartland. And Heartland's actually a really surprising community in that a lot of people, when they first hear about it, kind of shy away, because this is where the train track runs through, and then Highway 1A. And then being that it's down kind of a bit lower than Heritage Hills, Sunset Ridge, or the homes up in Jumping Pound, you don't have the same mountain views that you do in some of the other communities in Heartland. But what Heartland does have is a couple of really nice parks, pathway system that runs across the base here, a pedestrian crossing over the CP rail here, which leads you to the pathways along the Bow River really quickly. They do have a future K-8 site right here, which is in the top 2 for priority for all of Rocky View County. And then they've just recently last year added a off-leash dog park, and then this storm pond with a paved pathway surrounding it. So that's really cool. And they're just building in the final little bit of the phase here. So this is the last bit of construction here in Heartland. So you can move into the bulk of Heartland and be well away from construction, which is really nice. And then this little area right here is actually penciled in to be changed into future commercial. And the idea is that it's home to a future grocery store. So that is a big win for Heartland residents when this comes to fruition. And then at the entrance to the community, there is some amenities here with a Petro-Canada gas station, a Tim Hortons, there's a pharmacy, a Mexican restaurant, and a little farm veggie stand that's open in the summertime. And then there's also a daycare right here. And its location, along with the two communities I'm going to do next, being right along Highway 1A, is super convenient because if you look, and what I talked about earlier in the video, if you jump and head west on Highway 1A, you can head right over to Ghost Lake, and it is a big public lake, and right here on the corner is a public launch access area, so you can come launch your boat, use it for the day. There is some docks to moor up and plenty of parking for boats and trailers. And then if you can't find parking here, there's some additional stuff on this side with another launch and dock here. And so that's just a great place to head out and get in some lake recreation as well. Heading back into Cochrane here, the next two communities I'm going to talk about are Heritage Hills and West Hawk. Both of these communities are located north of Highway 1A and again, just slightly northwest of the town. Heritage Hills is a little bit more established. They're pretty much done building up in here. There's only a few more homes left, but they've got some good townhouses that don't have condo fees here, so that's a nice win. A lot of these homes are built on a slope. You can see that it's elevated. Then there's a small commercial area right here at the southwest corner of it. Co-op liquor store, there's an Anytime Fitness, and a few other things here, but they're still looking to build out most of the tenants there. One great thing about Heritage Hills is that right here is the future Horse Creek Road recreation site. So they're going to be putting in a whole new recreation complex with baseball diamonds, soccer fields, a skating rink. There's going to be some pathways along the hillside here. And then this section right here is the Horse Creek High School site. And so the town actually went ahead and provided and did deep servicing for the site. And just recently in the new provincial budget, they have been given design funding for this high school. So I wouldn't expect that we're going to see this high school sometime in 2030, 2031 would be kind of the earliest. Then the newest community here in Cochrane is West Hawk, and it looks totally different than what this map is. So there's some aerial footage you're going to see as we talk about this, but there's going to be a good mixture of detached homes that are going to follow this future heritage boulevard and backing onto this ravine. And then there's some really cool duplexes that are built in here with attached garages that are overlooking and have great views because of the elevation here of the Cochrane Valley and looking west towards the Rocky Mountains. So there's some homes in here, even duplexes and townhouses that have some phenomenal views. So if you're looking for some newer homes or maybe you're a first-time home buyer, these have some of the best views in Cochrane for new builds. So I would definitely pay attention to West Hawk. Two more little communities to touch on before we move up to the largest community in Cochrane. So stick around for that one because it's got a couple schools and we definitely need to talk about it because it makes up almost half the town's population. The first one is Cochrane Heights. Cochrane Heights is an older community here. Again, not very big. Access just off of Highway 1A. And again, you could make an argument that this is walkable, but you do have to cross the highway here. Inside of Cochrane Heights is Cochrane High School, which is the original high school, and then Cochrane's Arena, so another hockey rink, again, an older one, and then Elizabeth Barrett Elementary School and Menachaband Middle School. So this Menachaband Middle School has French immersion in it as well. Then the last little community here is Sunterra Heights. So Sunterra Heights is just a tiny little community perched up on the hill up by Cochrane Cemetery. This is that access point that you can park kind of up here and access the trails along this Mount St. Francis hillside that Bike Cochrane's done. But Sunterra just has a small little amount of homes. These homes are all up on the ridge. You've got great views. There's a little park in here. It's really quiet up here. The only people that obviously come up here are the people driving up the Retreat Road, which is not too much traffic, and then the actual people moving into the... So if you're looking for a quiet, more mature little neighborhood, Sunterra Heights would be one to look at as well. And so you can just see a little bit older homes, but again, great views, lining the ridge, and super quiet. Homes up in Sunterra don't come on the market all that often because one, there isn't very many of them, but when they do tend to go pretty fast as well. The last big community, the biggest community here in Cochrane, this one is Sunset Ridge. Sunset Ridge has two schools. It has Ranch View K-8 right here, and it has the St. Timothy High School, which is Cochrane's Calgary Catholic School District High School. The other really cool feature that Sunset Ridge has is the Sunset Pond. It's the largest pond here in Cochrane, and it has pathways all the way along it with little benches and seating areas. So if you're heading out for a dog walk, this is a great little spot. As you can see, there's little access points with benches and seating, and then actually a really nice kids park right around the corner here. And then there's a really nice kids park right here. So that's a super cool little feature. Sunset Ridge does have a few amenities at the entry. There's a Petro-Canada gas station, some restaurants. There's a really cool little coffee shop in here. And then there is Sunset Ridge Medical Clinic, dental clinic, and a pharmacy. So again, a few nice things here right at the entry of the community. Obviously, the big thing, and we're going to touch on this right away, is you can see the size of Sunset Ridge. It is one of the largest, or is the largest community here in Cochrane, and makes up a significant portion of the town's population. And it is still building. So they are still building in these future phases here, and still building in the estate phases here, which is Pinnacle Estates. But currently there is only one entrance into and out of this community, which is the one knock that I hear all the time from buyers, is that they'd like to see a second entrance. Obviously, with the K-8 school buried deep in the community, the traffic along Sun Valley Road here and then along Sunset Boulevard leaving the community, especially during school pickup and drop-off times, can be quite hectic. Other property styles here in Sunset Ridge, there's a couple condo buildings along here. If you're looking for condo living, these ones here have some fantastic views of the mountains, especially if you're on that west side. There is townhouses, duplexes, and then even estate homes that are building down here, which are some really nice homes. Are really slow. These areas here are still under construction, but there's homes being built along Sun Valley View here that have extensive views of that ranch house valley and looking into this area here, which is all owned by a ranching family with no plans to develop, which is why Sunset Ridge has been pushing north. Now that pretty much wraps up Cochrane in general. Some of the other amenities that I want to point out before we totally finish off the video here is Cochrane's Urgent Care Center, which is right located, again, right in the center of downtown, right here. This is where Cochrane has your lab services, or if you need emergency medical care, this is where you're going to head. Cochrane itself doesn't have a hospital, it has an urgent care. The difference being is that hospitals obviously are 24/7 and can handle a wider range of issues, whereas the urgent care is only open until 11 p.m. at night and then opens about 6 a.m. in the morning. So when this Cochrane Urgent Care is closed and you need emergency services, you will have to either obviously get an ambulance, or if you're able, drive either on Highway 1A or down 22 and out on Highway 1 and come into Calgary. And that's where you're going to find the Alberta Children's Hospital and Foothills Medical Center. So those are the two closest hospitals for residents here in Cochrane. So pay attention to where those are as well. So that wraps up the total tour of Cochrane here with the Google Maps video. I hope you stuck around. There was a lot of information there. If you have any questions, I have a ton of content on this channel, from community tours to Cochrane specific info videos. Check those out. If you have specific questions and you're looking to move to Cochrane, Alberta, reach out. My contact information is on the screen now and it's in the description of the video. Let's connect and see if we're a good fit and try and get you that perfect next home here in Cochrane, Alberta. Thanks, and I will catch you in the next one.